we are shown Chris arriving for an interview. The manager asks him if he misses playing professionally tennis. He says not really. He didn't have the talent to be one of the great tennis players. The manager tells him, "You can start this weekend." Then the next morning is already at work with the exclusive clients of the club. He is then introduced to Tommy, who will be his new student. Tommy didn't play for years, so he is nervous. They start practicing. After the practice, Tommy asks Chris about his old days of pro tennis player. Chris then asks for a music store, and says he loves the opera. Tommy, hearing it, gets excited. His family has connections, and invites him tomorrow night at the opera. He accepts. The night of opera arrives. Tommy introduces Chris to his family. The shows then begins. Everyone is so into it. Tommy's sister seems to be interested in Chris. The next day, Tommy and Chris, on a phone call. Chris tells him his sister is very bright. Tommy says she liked you, and wanted to invite you to their parents' country house on Sunday. Days later, at the country house, both are having their tennis session. The sister named Chloe arrives and wants to play with Chris. Tommy leaves them. She is so bad at it, but he is good sport, and compliments her after the game. Chris says he wants to do something with his life, something special. She offers to show him around. He would love that, and in exchange offers her some free tennis lessons. A little bit later, it's time for the party at the rich country house. Chris puts his suit on. He hears someone playing ping pong. It's a girl named Lola, who beat a family member easily. He beats her in a matter of seconds. She was so confident and now intrigued. He grabs and shows her how to swing. Chris asks her, "What a beautiful American ping pong player doing in a middle of British upper class?" She doesn't answer. Tommy then walks in. He introduces him to her officially. She is his fiancée. Lola then leaves. Chris asks how long you have been together. 6 months, he replies. He is very in love with her. She is a struggling actress. He then invites him to join them for dinner next week. Days later, Chloe and Chris hang out in town, and she shows him around. They even go to a movie. She asks him if he needs money. He says, "Of course not. I'm fine." She is asking because she cares about him, she says. He kisses her passionately. Days later, Chloe asks the dad if he can do something for him, one of his companies or something. The mom says be careful. She is already worried about Tommy's girlfriend Lola. She doesn't think she is right for her son. That same night, Chloe goes to meet Chris for dinner. He says that if her father's associates called him about a job. He is surprised and he wasn't aware of it. He thanks her for being so thoughtful. He never saw himself in the business world, so he will think about it. "What do you see for yourself?" then she asks. He doesn't know. At this moment arrives Tommy and Lola. They all serve for dinner. Lola keeps saying she wants an Aston Martin. Chris keeps giving looks to Lola. He asks her about her acting career. Lola do not think her career has gone as planned. Chris says she needs some luck, while Chloe doesn't believe in luck but rather hard work. Chris and Lola kept looking at each other. The next day, Chris goes to the job proposition from her father's friend. Chloe later tells him how happy she is he took that job. The next day, Chris walks when he sees Lola. She says she has an audition in 10 minutes and her confidence is way down. He offers to walk with her to there. He offers to come to the audition as moral support, after Tommy refused it to her. Minutes later, he waits for her outside. She comes out very disappointed of the audition. She wants a drink after this fiasco. They go for a drink. Chris tells her she is very beautiful. She tells him how she met Tommy, who went straight on her at a party. She also says Tommy's mom doesn't like her. She asks about Chloe, which he responds she is very sweet and the mom also isn't really a fan of her marrying him. She says don't blow your future marriage by trying with me. Lola realizes she drank too much and asks Chris to get her a cab. The next day, all four goes to the family country house. Chris keeps looking at Lola. Minutes later, the dad tells Chris he had great feedback on his work. Very soon a big position is opening up, and since him and Chloe are very close, he is considering Chris for the job. They then shoot some guns. On the other side, the mom asks Lola how long will try this acting until you give up, time is passing. Lola is shocked, as the mom keep being negative about Lola's acting career. Tommy stands up for his girlfriend. The mom adds that she has no talent if she has to continue fighting for it. Lola, upset, stands up and leaves. Chris sees her walking in the rain. He hesitates, then follows her. Lola do not think it's a good idea he followed her here. He grabs her and kisses. Days later, at the opera, Tommy receives a call that he passes to Lola. It's an agent that has a potential movie for her. Chris steps out and asks her why she has been cold to him since the day they made out. She says she tries to encourage anything, it was a mistake. He pushes to kiss her, but she pushes him, saying it's over, forget it. The next day, Chris meets Henry, an old friend. Henry is surprised to see Chris has a company car and a driver. Chris gives him his business card to call him anytime. That night, Chris and his girlfriend Chloe are at evening, when Chloe's mom asks when is the wedding. At that gathering, Chris sees Tommy and Lola kisses passionately. They stop when they see him. He doesn't seem happy. Days later, Chris and Chloe get married. They then move into their new amazing apartment. Chloe wants kids. Chris is then teaching Tommy like usual, but Tommy doesn't seem to be in his element today. He reveals that Lola and him broke up. Chris reminds them they were supposed to get married. Tommy says he met someone else. The next day, at his new job, he calls Lola's number, but the number doesn't work. He then goes to her apartment. A neighbor says she moved out yesterday. Chris is being preoccupied, and Chloe reminds him it's been a week since we made love. Then Tommy and his new girlfriend are getting married. Chloe, on the other hand, keeps complaining that they tried to make kids but still nothing. Chris is at his job, he is so stressed. He goes then to meet his wife. On his way, he can't believe who he sees, Lola. He runs after her, but runs into Chloe. He says he has to make a phone call and leave them. He finally meets Lola again. She is shocked to see him. He says he looked for her, asks her where is she living alone. She asks him why is he asking all those questions. He wants to meet her for a drink just to talk. Chloe arrives and sees them. Chris says he bumped into her. He whispers to her, begging her to say her phone number. She does. The next day, they get out of a futility doctor. Chris then goes to make love to Lola. The next day, Chris is so in his thoughts during breakfast, and says he has to go to work, when in reality he went to make love to Lola. That night, Tommy, his wife, Chris and Chloe are having dinner. Tommy says they bumped into Lola the other day. A friend couple meet them and the husband is pretty sure to have seen Chris calling a cab the other day. At work, Chris wants to step out of work for his pleasure with Lola. His county worker remind them of the meeting. He says he will be back. Lola and Chris argue. Chris says he is bored with Chloe. Lola is so frustrated for failing her auditions. She doesn't know what she is doing with him. He doesn't know what he would do if he couldn't see her. Christmas then arrives. Chris is secretly leaving a voicemail to Lola. Chloe's father, tell me you have been performing bad at your job, but don't worry because you make my daughter happy. Meanwhile, Chris continues to see Lola on the regular. On a 3-day weekend, she calls him saying she needs to see him ASAP. That night she calls him to the country house while he is having dinner. She wants to see him ASAP. Lola reveals to him that she is pregnant. Chris gets silent and tells her he will be there tomorrow. He tells the family that he has to step out for work. The next day he is screaming at Lola. He wants abortion but she can't do it for the 3rd time. She wants to raise the kid with him. She expects him to do the right thing. When Chris and Chloe comes back, he tells her he can't keep leaning on her father. She asks him if it's about those phone calls. She is asking if he is having an affair. He says of course no. She asks if he doesn't love her anymore. He tells her of course I love you. He says he is feeling like he is letting her down for not being able to make her a baby. The next day Chris meets his old friend Henry. He needs to talk to him, he is suffering. He then tells him, he was thinking of leaving his wife for another woman, but when the time came to say it, he couldn't do it. This other woman is driving him crazy. He can't leave his wife, he has got used to this rich style living. He then meets Lola saying that he will tell his wife in 3 weeks. She gets so mad, asking him to stop playing games with her. Lola then reveals to him she is jealous of Chloe. The next day Chris calls Lola, but doesn't say a word and hang up. Chloe's father then tells Chris about a huge opportunity with a Japanese firm. At this moment Lola calls him, he is getting annoyed with her. She says it has been a week, she was waiting for his call. He is lying to her that he is in Greece. Later Lola is walking when she sees Chris, she realizes he was lying to her about being in Greece. She calls him again and he lies again. So the next day, she shows up in front of his job, screaming that he lied to her. She wants to talk to Chloe. He screams for a taxi, throws her in there and they leave. She wants to tell Chloe everything. They get home, they argue. She says if you are not gonna tell her, I will. She threats him, that he won't then she will tell Chloe. That night he is wide awake and is thinking. The next day, Chris goes to the ranch of Chloe's father and steals a gun. It's time to deal with this situation. Chloe searches for him. He is hoping not to be seen taking that gun. He comes back. He then goes to Lola and tells her that he will tell Chloe tomorrow. She says you say that every day. He thinks it's like a revenge for her against the whole family. She screams, tell her now. He promises tomorrow for sure, and asks her what time she gets back from work. She just want to be with him. That night, Chloe sees he is nervous and asks him about it. He thinks it's high sugar maybe. She wants to open the bag where the gun is, thinking her tennis clothes may be in there. He stops her. He goes in and find her clothes. He drops a bullet, put it in his pocket. She asks what is it and changes subject and tells her he got great tickets for a concert tomorrow. The next day, he calls Lola to come home after work. He had great news for her. She is so happy. After work, he grabs the bag with the gun, goes to her place. He knocks on her neighbor, says he wants to check her TV, takes the gun out and finishes her. At this moment, Lola is coming home. He is crying as he is getting ready for her. He is sweating. She finally arrives. She takes the elevator, and as she arrives, he finishes her. She will eventually come back haunting him, with him wondering if he did the right thing.